Jobs are there, but the manpower is missing. Faced with increasingly urgent labor shortages, Germany is casting its nets far afield in the search for skilled workers. Policymakers are actively courting workers for sectors from healthcare to food services. Health Minister Spahn traveled to Mexico on his quest. A new law aims to promote skilled labor immigration. At the same time, Germany's deporting refugees whose temporary asylum has expired. And xenophobic right-wing parties are on the rise. Open or closed, is Germany a country of immigration? That's our topic on To the Point. Welcome, and thanks for joining us here on To the Point, where our guests in the studio are Malte Lehming, who is an opinion writer for the Berlin daily, the Tagesspiegel. He says Germany is in a global competition for qualified immigrants. To be successful, it must offer greater incentives and better conditions. And it's a pleasure to welcome Zafer Şenocak. He is a freelance author and journalist born in Ankara and resident in Germany since 1970. He says unified Germany still has no immigration policy based on reality, but is under enormous pressure to act. And great to have with us Ana Álvarez. She is originally from Costa Rica and now works with the Berlin-based Migration Hub Network, which provides support to international projects working with migrants. She says it seems like we're going back to well-known regulations, forgetting the real contribution that current and future migrants make to this country. So let me begin by asking all of you this. I have been in Germany myself for 35 years now, and for as long as I can remember, this country has been engaging in passionate debate with itself about precisely this question, whether it is a country of immigration. What makes this discourse so tortured?
I'm not quite sure whether it's a real German phenomenon or specific to Germany. I mean, if you look around all industrialist nations, from the backlash on Donald Trump and the Brexit discussion in Great Britain, Scandinavia, France, Austria, all these countries, they all struggle with the relationship between native-born population and migrants and refugees. So there is something that, I mean, Germans like to argue and to discuss their own identity questions a lot, but it's not exclusively Germany that does it.
Anna?
I agree to some extent, because somehow, as a migrant myself in Germany, it feels like Germany is still trying to identify what kind of migrants they want in this country. Undeniably, Germany is a migration country, and, you know, denying that would be denying a lot of migrants who have made an incredible contribution to this country.
Zafer, you've been here in Germany even longer than I have.
Yeah.
Do you have a similar impression that this debate just goes on and on in new iterations?
Absolutely. I think it brings a lot of tension, but maybe it's also profit for a lot of people to discuss this and not to finish. I don't know. But in the end, without a joke, I think it's a serious problem because we have a kind of amnesia in this question. The background of this discussion is, in fact, the guest worker, the desk worker of the 60s, of the 70s. And the German society didn't develop a real positive, constructive attitude towards the experience of work migration. The migrants have an enormous positive memory of this time. So there's a gap between this negative attitude among a lot of Germans. People don't integrate, they stay foreign, they don't communicate, and so on. And the other ones who say, we could come to this country and could find a safe place, we could make our living here, we could invest in our home countries, and we could really bring our children to the world here. And this is, we have to bring this together, more together, to have a more realistic view of future immigration.
Thank you. Let us just give a listen to how a few Germans with a migration background actually also answer this question about whether Germany has become a country of immigration. Deutsche Welle launched an ambitious social media survey to find out what they think. Here's a sample.
Today, Germany is a multicultural country. It already is a society based on immigration. That's not something for the distant future. It's already reality.
Maybe some people just don't want to believe that we're already such a diverse society.
In my opinion, someone who would describe me as not German just because of my name or something else doesn't understand Germany. We are a nation of immigrants.
So over this long debate, during at least some of its phases, the word multicultural, Malte, has not necessarily had positive connotations for a lot of people here in Germany. Yet the first speaker that we heard used it in a very positive way as a statement of fact. What do you think? Is that the case?
I think it should be used in a positive way. I mean, you have to differentiate between the simple fact that Germany is a diverse, multicultural, immigration country. I mean, there's simply a fact because people from migrant backgrounds now, in the near future, will be 25% of the population. Who can deny that it is a migrant country? The next thing is to have a positive attitude towards being that, to value the contribution migrants have for the country, starting with the recruitment agreements in the 50s and 60s with Italy, Spain, Greece, and all these countries, but ending now with the immigration of, we had the example of Jens Spahn, the Minister of Health, who's traveling around the world to get migrants coming to Germany.
We're going to see another example of that a little bit later on. But let me ask you this, Anna. One person's multiculti is another person's parallel society. The idea that different ethnic groups live next to each other, essentially in a form of ghetto cut off from the larger society. What's your experience as a person who's been in this country now for, I think it's 4 years?
It's only 4 years, but I work with migrants who've been here already for, more years than that. And I have seen with them what's the transition that takes to actually feel integrated. And there's many people, sadly, who even have born here and they don't even feel themselves German. So there is definitely, I would like to highlight what Malte said. I mean, we have to work towards look at it as a positive thing. Because unfortunately, still in the streets and in the society, many people tend to ghettoize their culture or their ethnicity because there is not that openness in the real life or in the daily life for them to express their culture, their religions. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they feel more safe towards ghettoize and join their groups than rather just, integrate with the rest of the society.
And I would stress that parallel societies are part of an integration society. Because not only because they are not being welcomed by open arms, but because they tend to be towards each other. They speak their own language, they try to help each other. So they have block and communities. We have Little Italy in New York. We have Chinatowns everywhere. So these are parallel societies, but that doesn't exclude integration.
They are more accepted, I think, this parallel societies in Germany. But the real question is why we are panicking so much. Mm-hmm. Why there is so much panic and hysteria in this question. For example, I experienced two different migration processes. One was coming from Turkey to Munich in the beginning of the 70s as a child, and the second was as a grown-up man coming from Munich to Berlin. It was also
a real culture shock.
Yes. So people live different. They have different ideas of their lives. And this is a part of modern open, pluralistic societies. We have to ensure people that they can live a life differently without having these big topics always, parallel society. Because what is parallel society? In Berlin, in a high middle class areas, life is also very, very parallel. Mm-hmm. If you compare it to places in Berlin where more social conflicts are. Mm-hmm. So it says nothing. It's the point of fear coming out from differences is the main issue.
Can I ask you for another comparison? You talk about open, pluralistic societies. Yeah. One country that is often seen that way is Canada. Canada has quotas for skilled labor immigration, but it also tends to take quite a large number of refugees. I know that you lived and worked in Canada. So can you give us a nutshell comparison of that society compared with this one?
I think the attitude, I was, by the way, more in the United States than in Canada, but I have some experience also in Canada, and the attitude is the more important thing. I don't expect, in fact, Germany becoming Canada. This is not realistic. This is a country, this is a tradition, this is a history. We have to talk about it. The problem is that we don't talk really about it. You know, we talk always about immigration. Immigration, yes. Immigration, no. Close the borders, open the borders. It's not that easy. We have to push away the amnesia and to look in our history, which is a difficult history in the 20th century, by the way, and to the story after the war. And we have to see what is German today, how it can change, and how fixed is it.
And Malte, there's another layer to that history as well, namely 2015, when we had hundreds of thousands of refugees entering this country, many of them from Syria, many of them fleeing the war. There was quite a shift in attitudes. Zafer says it's all about attitudes. There was quite a shift in attitudes. What was initially heralded as a welcome culture turned bitter. Why? What happened there?
But these are two different discourses. The discourse about the refugees in 2015 and 2016 is basically driven by humanitarian arguments, being tolerant, being an open society, and so on and so on. The migration discussion is around competition, is about seeing the fact that 3/4 of migrants go to just 4 countries: United States, Great Britain, Canada, and Australia. Why? Because they're English-speaking countries. They have an excellent school and university system, and so on. You have to be attractive for migrants in the future to have a stay in the global competition. I mean, Germany ranks in attractiveness on rank 12 in the 30 countries which are developed. This is not enough. So Germans have to recognize the fact that it's not just the question of being tolerant, open, and welcoming, but the necessity of having more immigrants. This is something new.
This is very interesting because the image of Germany is very positive by a lot of countries, and this ranking is very interesting. There is a gap between this rank and the image, and I think that has to do with the self-image of the Germans, that they have difficulties to accept that they are loved somewhere else.
Anna, you want to add?
Yes, and basically I wouldn't separate that topic, the migration, with the ones who arrived in 2015. I mean, let's look at how are they doing these days. Actually, there is a report, right, that says that 400,000 have gotten a job. What kind of jobs is another story. But I work with many of them, and actually the attitude that many of them have taken towards integrating into, I mean, following the rules, so to say, it's been phenomenal. They go to German classes, they're working aside. I mean, they're really trying.
Let me stop you right there, because we actually have a report about exactly such a young man. And let it be said that it is perhaps not confusing that Germans often confuse this debate, because for a long, long time, they had no category for skilled labor immigration. It was only refugees. Those who came in 2015 were looking for refugee status. Let's take a look at a young man who is one of those who has received a temporary refugee recognition, but who lives in uncertainty, not knowing when he might be sent home if the danger to him in his home country recedes. We visited a young man from Afghanistan.
Kais has had a stable job at the migration office in Leipzig for a little under a year now. He came to Germany 5 years ago and speaks German well. That makes him a prime example of successful integration. Back in Afghanistan, he had been in the military, but he fled the country after receiving serious threats. Kais loves his new home, but his residency status makes him worry. His right to stay is only temporary, so each year he has to reapply for extensions for his wife and 2 children.
What happens when 1 year is up? What will happen to my children and my family? We can't go back to Afghanistan. I left everything behind to build a new future. I wanted to live in safety, But nevertheless, we haven't truly arrived. We can only wait.
Should Germany be more open towards well-integrated immigrants?
Let me pass that question right on to you, Anna, because you were saying we shouldn't make this distinction between essentially the skilled, on the one hand, who contribute to the economy, and the others who are often seen as a drag on the economy. So what about a young man like Kais?
He's a contribution to this economy. He's a contribution to this country, as many that has arrived in the recent years. Actually, parallel to this new act, right, that enters in March 1st, there was another act that also passed.
That's the act to allow skilled labor immigration to sectors like healthcare.
Exactly, and there's another one that passed exactly at the same time. It actually entered into force, I guess, in February or something like that, which is the temporary suspension of deportation, because many of cases like that existed in Germany, where they already got a job, but they were in the process of whether deportation or they were not, into like refugee status, so on. So now this act also is going to protect people like them, right? So I think I want to highlight what you said. I mean, what are we panicking about? I mean, perhaps it's very important that we don't make a distinction and then we see everybody as a contribution. And I also have many examples like the one that you just showed, actually from Syrian refugees as well. Many of them, especially the ones who had a doctor background, which is basically one of the skill sets that it's looked, or its interest in this new act. And they are already working and they're already as doctors, and they're the ones who are saying Germany needs more migrants or more people who work in the, for example, health.
What's going on here, Zafer?
I think a lot of difficulties they have connected to the issue that there was a kind of impression that state and officials lost control on this issue. We had this experience 2015,
after the hundreds of thousands of refugees came in.
And this was, in the end, it was right. There was a control loss. And the next thing was that it was enormously misused by right-wing politicians and by people who organized the panic. And there is a kind of sensitivity in this issue because there is this story that there are enormous amounts of people who want to come to Europe and especially to Germany. And if you don't care about this, it will be overrun. So this is a talk we cannot just shut our eyes. We have to open our eyes and we have to look in it and we have to address it. We have to communicate the issue. What is the rational way how immigration could be organized?
And I think this example that you just showed to us demonstrates this in a perfect way, because we have, on the one hand, a moral obligation to protect these people because they helped the German army in Afghanistan. They're seen by locals as collaborators, so we have a moral obligation to help them. On the other hand, German taxpayers invested in these people for education, giving language courses, housing them for healthcare, and so on and so on. I don't know how much money in each person of them, but to expel them after a certain time mean we invested and just wasted the money. So that just an economical reason, just stupid to do that.
Malte, can I just ask you, because Zafer has basically implied that right-wing politicians are instrumentalizing xenophobia precisely in regard to young refugees like Kais. Would you say that's true? And by the way that they handle this, are mainstream politicians running scared in front of this right-wing fervor?
I think they instrumentalize that, but I think that is, again, that is a European, if not a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, in the moment you have, in a couple of months, 100,000 of people coming in uncontrolled, and you have a right-wing populist party by 10%, I think that's what could have been expected. I don't want to excuse that or to minimize the political impact, but I think there is a correlation between the acceptance of migration and the feeling that is in a way controlled migration and not an uncontrolled migration.
Now, it's really important what you're saying, Malte, but let's not forget there is a new report from the KfW, which is this German bank state, that says that in the East and in the rural areas in Germany, 40% of the people are against, or they said that they don't need skilled labor migrants. Because of course, and this is that's the target of the right wing, this population, because they are afraid, they are unemployed, right? They belong part of the 3.1% of the people who are unemployed in this country. So, of course, their fear is that increases, and that's what also Germany should look into more precisely and more thoroughly. Also, how we can integrate the ones who are unemployed at the moment.
Yes, I'm going to stop you here because our time is limited, and I do want to take at least a brief look at the other side of the coin. At the same time that Germany is wrestling with right-wing xenophobia, it's also actively seeking skilled labor abroad. A new law and a public relations campaign are designed to attract promising candidates.
These 16 women from Namibia are learning German with music. They're trained nurses, but because they have no chance of finding work in their home country, they're applying for jobs in Germany. Employees at the university hospital in Düsseldorf traveled to Namibia, especially for job interviews.
I feel it's a good opportunity for my personal development and for my career as well, and for the things I want to do in the future. To explore a bit and to work in a world-class health facility and gain more professional experience.
Iyalu hopes to soon be able to support her family in Namibia with the income she earns here. Later, she hopes to study in Germany, or she'll return to Namibia. After the interviews in Windhoek, the team from Düsseldorf is excited. I have to tell you, our clinic has decided that we would like to have all of them in Düsseldorf. But is everyone profiting from the migration of skilled workers to Germany?
Exactly the question that Anna just read. Let me ask you this, Zafer. 5-month language course and then off to Germany. So question would be, how well prepared are these young women likely to be for what awaits them here? And what will become of them later? Do you think this country will do better at integrating them than it has many other guest workers?
No, but absolutely. I also think that this country integrated a lot of guest workers very, very well in the end. This is a question of psychological discourse, if you want. Because if you see only the bad sides of immigration, you can have a picture. If you see only the good sides, you can have a picture. The right is in the middle. I mean, you have it's gray. You know, you have this dark sides and good sides, and you have problems in the society. Important is how you'll solve the problems and how you can advise people to act more realistic and relaxed in the same way. I mean, we have an enormous efficient organization of life here in this country, and we are able to integrate a lot of people. This is without a question. But at the same time, we have enormous fears in a part of the society, not a small part. I don't think it's a majority, but it is 30–40% of people are mostly negative towards immigration because of out of enormous, many reasons. And we have to address the reasons. It's very important. If you don't address the reasons, you will have more and more problems.
Malte, is this an either-or? Should Germany stop looking to Namibia for skilled workers and simply invest more in education and training for people like Kais, the young Afghan man?
No, I would say it's basically a question of sensitivity. I mean, if a Minister of Health gives the impression that a rich white man from a European country comes with a pocket full of money to buy laborers to Germany, I think that would be a very, very dangerous impression. You have to see, in some cases, you cause even a brain drain in developing countries. This is compensated in most cases due to the fact of the remittance these people pay to their families in their own countries. But you have to, I mean, you have to talk about all these. And looking for skilled workers is one thing, but qualifying your own, if it's refugees or migrants in your own country, is the next thing that is at least as important as the first thing.
So, Anna, last question goes to you, and we go back to our title. Malte says we need to talk about it. Is the talk achieving something? Would you say Germany is evolving toward a country of immigration, open rather than closed?
I don't know how this public relationship campaign will go. I'm actually looking forward to see that after March 1st. But the impression right now towards the migrants that are here is what about us? Yes, Germany has done an impressive work, but still there's so many things that needs to be fixed internally, even for the ones to come. I mean, I am part of a country, for example, that I cannot open a bank account easily in Germany. So it's very important that these little minor details that really counts a lot into the integration are fixed first. And secondly, let's also take into a look into the ones that are here already. What are the skill sets? Many of them, particularly the ones who came in 2015, they are going in through Ausbildung processes, right? So they will be highly skilled in a very short period of time, and they will be also part of these skill-level migrants. So that's also a question that we will see as, I guess, as it advances this act.
Last question, one-word answer, please. When people from your country and from Latin America generally look at Germany, what do they see, open or closed?
It's open and aspirational, but not necessarily the reality when they come here.
Thank you very much to all of you for being with us today, and thanks to you out there for tuning in. See you soon.